Good morning. I am Karen Morton. I'm the Northeast Regional Director for the Republican Liberty Caucus of Florida. And I want to welcome you to the forum this morning. We are going to be talking with our candidates who are running for Clay County Sheriff on your primary ballot. We have 6 candidates on the ballot. 2 are not here today. One of those is Darrell Daniels, and Darrell did not respond to our requests for his appearance. Also, Harold Rutledge will not be here today. He did respond, but he indicated that he is doing no public events due to COVID. On the stage with me today, we have our remaining 4 candidates, and we're thrilled to have them. First of all, we have Catherine Webb. Second, Mike Taylor. Third is Ben Carroll. And fourth is Michelle Cook. We welcome you all, and we wish best wishes to all of you in this forum. We have a moderator for the event. That moderator is a retired Navy captain. He is a former congressional candidate for District 4, and he's also the national spokesman for the We Can Be Heroes Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Ryman Schoaf.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Okay, like Karen said, I'll be the moderator. And just as a review for our sheriff candidates this morning, you will each be given a 2-minute open and close. And so we've lined you up. You drew numbers, and so we've lined you up from 1 to 4, so we'll start at the end. And since the first candidate will open and the 4th candidate will be at the end of that, and when we close, it'll be reverse. Number 4 will be number 1, and we'll go the opposite way. Just give you a heads up for that. The questions will be timed, and I'll let you know whether it's a 1-minute or a 2-minute. And if when we get to that point of reminding you of your time, Travis is in the front. He's going to be our timekeeper. So as you're moving through your comments, when you have 15 seconds left, you'll get the 15-second card. When you're done, we're going to give you Old Glory. And if you continue to push, you're going to get the dreaded cowbell. Okay. If a candidate chooses to direct a comment at another candidate, we will allow the accused candidate 30 seconds to rebut. We would ask that you refrain from that because you're trying to inform the voters of Clay County of why they should vote for you and not why they shouldn't vote for another candidate. But if that arises, you will be given 30 seconds in order to state your case. Okay? And so with that, we will get started. So this is your 2-minute open, and we will start with Ms. Webb.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you for your service. Good morning. My name is Catherine Webb, and I'm a retired Navy chief, and I am pleased to be here. I would like to thank the Republican Liberty Caucus of Northeast Florida for putting this forum on for the candidates of 2020 for the Forum for Sheriff of Clay County. I am honored to be running for sheriff for a county where I reside. I am a resident of Clay County, and I live in Fox Meadow. I retired from the Navy in 2012, and I have been honored to serve my community since. For the last 9 years, my husband and I have frequented our restaurants. We have served the community where we live, and we are proud to be Clay County residents. I was chief of police in Atsugi, Japan. I was watch commander in the worst correctional facility in the world, and I was the anti-terrorism force protection officer here at Southeast Region. I am proud to have served my country, and I am willing to serve my community. With all that our nation is facing today, I believe we need a leader who leads by example for others to emulate. I would like to serve my community, to be the sheriff of our county, to lead the men and women in our county, to serve you as I have served our nation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to candidate number 2, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning. My name is Mike Taylor, and I'm running for Clay County Sheriff. First, I'd like to thank the Republican Liberty Caucus for putting on this forum. It's the only forum that's been organized to this extent during the entire campaign. Thank you. I'm running for sheriff because my wife and I and family love Clay County. We moved to Clay County in 2002 when I was a special agent supervisor working for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. When we drove into Clay County, we fell in love immediately. It reminded me of Polk County, where I grew up. I was the first resident member on the CDD board in Fleming Island Plantation. I was the first resident to be the chairman of that CDD board. Our boys completed their Eagle projects at the Clay County Fairgrounds. We found Clay County to be a bastion of Christian conservative values and Republican values. Great schools, great law enforcement, and just a beautiful community. 12 years ago, I ran for sheriff in Clay County. The agency I worked for, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, would not let me keep my job and run for public office, so I quit. I lost that election, but I didn't wait until I was retired. I didn't wait until it was convenient for me. I loved Clay County and saw things that needed to be corrected, an increase in gang activity, violent crime, and drugs that needed to be addressed in a significant manner. It cost me over $1 million. My wife and I lost everything. Folks have asked me, Mike, why do you love Clay County so much, and why are you running again? Dr. Stephen R. Covey says the definition of love is what you've been through together. When I looked at my wife the day after we lost, having lost everything, we decided that we loved Clay County that much. And so here we are.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And now, Mr. Carroll.
Yes, my name is Ben Carroll. I've lived and worked in Clay County for the last 25 years. My kids have been raised here in Clay County schools, and now my grandkids go to Clay County schools. I am the only candidate in the race that has both worked and retired from the Clay County Sheriff's Office. I have a master's degree in public administration, and I'm an adjunct professor for Barry University, where I teach planning and budgeting, ethics, and human resources. I served my last 5 years with the Clay County Sheriff's Office as their emergency manager, where I wrote 17 of Clay County's most high liability policies, including their pandemic policy, which we're all now experiencing. I served the last 13 years on the SWAT team, and upon my retirement, we opened a company called Ground Operations Development, or GOD, and we travel the country now, teaching SWAT teams across the country. And that's ballooned into a larger company where we help churches and private schools set up their security programs. Right now, I'm running for Clay County Sheriff because a lot of the men with the Sheriff's Department, not all of them, but a large majority of them, approached me and asked me to run. So I'm here today running for Clay County Sheriff, trying to put the boat back on the right course, trying to help us out with our finances and look into the way we do business as the Clay County Sheriff's Office. We want to do it with transparency. We want to do it with responsibility. And that's the reason I'm here today. That's the reason the other men asked me to run. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And last, we have Mrs. Cook.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Republican Liberty Caucus for putting on this forum, and thank you to everybody at home or who's watching this online. My name is Michelle Cook, and I was born and raised here in Clay County, graduated from Clay High School in 1987. And when I graduated from high school, I was actually interested in joining the Navy, but I have asthma and couldn't join. So I put myself through the police academy, and in early 1992, I joined the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I was a street cop. I rode Springfield to Northside, and over my 26-and-a-half-year career at JSO, I worked my way up, earned my way up, promoted my way up through the ranks under 4 different sheriffs. I was a sergeant, a lieutenant, assistant chief, and a director. When I retired from JSO as the director of operations, I had command and control of over 1,000 deputies and a $100 million budget that I had to oversee. Upon retirement, I was very interested in coming back to Clay County and had inquired about the chief of police job for Green Cove Springs, but they had already offered the job to an internal candidate and they weren't going to post it. So the city of Atlantic Beach called me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming out here and talking to us? So about 3 years ago, the city of Atlantic Beach called, and I was chosen as the chief of police out there. And what was really great about running my own organization and being the head law enforcement officer for my own organization is I was able to implement the strategies and visions that I had learned under 4 different sheriffs over my career. And earlier this year, the city of Atlantic Beach was named the safest city in Northeast Florida. I'm ready to bring this training, education, and experience home to Clay County, and I'm looking forward to being your next sheriff.
Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Now that concludes our opening comments from our candidates. Now we're going to move into the individual questions. The first question will be directed first to Mrs. Webb. I'll give you a heads up there. And this is our first question. Given the current political climate in the U.S. today, many people are concerned about various groups protesting and rioting across the country. While some think this is confined to larger metropolitan areas, various groups, including Antifa and Indivisible, are in Jacksonville, and there have been at least 3 Black Lives Matter protests here in Clay County. How will you handle these and other groups that may decide not to peaceably assemble?
Thank you, Captain, for the question. We are seeing that our nation is facing a very difficult dilemma at this time. I have served our country honorably because I believe in the Constitution. I believe that people are entitled to their freedom of speech, but I am not, I repeat, I do not believe in lawlessness. I believe that it's important for the men and women in uniform to be safe as well as our community. What we're seeing across our nation is that people are not protesting peacefully. If that comes to Clay County, it will be suppressed immediately. I have dealt in the worst correctional facility in the world where we dealt with terrorists. Antifa has been claimed to be just that. Those groups are not folks that you can talk to and deal with. Lawlessness will not come to Clay County. We cannot allow people to burn down what we have built. It will not be allowed in our county. However, they are allowed to their freedom of speech as long as it is done in a peaceful manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And now we will go to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. I support the First Amendment, the right to protest, freedom of speech. But let me be very clear to everyone listening that when freedom of speech, the right to freedom of speech crosses the line and infringes upon the rights of other citizens for their personal safety or the destruction of private property, then the freedom of speech ends and people go to jail. I was a SWAT team member and a team leader on the counter-assault team for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in Miami. In 2000, I was on the streets supporting the city of Miami and Metro-Dade with our SWAT team during the Elian Gonzalez riots. It's very simple. When protesters want to come to our county, our cities, they're legally entitled to do so. We sit down with the organizers, we explain the rules. Here's where you can protest and do so peacefully. You break the rules, you go to jail. We don't cherry pick 1 or 2 people and take them to jail and let the protest continue. We shut the protest down. When you can reorganize and behave yourselves, you can come back and protest again. In today's society, we've got a problem that we as law enforcement and the community need to recognize. A very small fraction of police officers have acted badly, made bad decisions. I recognize that, and I support the peaceful protest against that. And if you protest peacefully about that, I'll protest with you. We need reform. I'll work together with you. But again, you cross the line or you get out of line and you infringe upon the rights of others to live safe and be protected or their property be damaged, then you go to jail.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Now, Mr. Carroll.
Well, the question is if they're not peaceful. And trust me, if you're not peaceful, we're going to put you in jail. That's just how it is. Unpeaceful protests violate the law. In my 40 years of law enforcement, I've served on the riot team and on the SWAT team. And I promise you that the Clay County Sheriff's Department is already prepared for unpeaceful protesting. I'm not going to divulge our strategies because I wrote the civil unrest plan on how we respond. But trust me, we have strategies on how to deal with people who do not want to obey the law. Yes, I support the Second Amendment right, or your First Amendment right for free speech as well. But if you come to Clay County and you decide you're going to break the law and infringe on others' rights, we're simply going to lock you up, we're going to put you in jail, and we'll use that force which is necessary to take you into custody. That's the way it's going to be, because we're all here. But the one thing that I want people to think about today is what brings us together. We're Americans. We are people that find God, country, and family very dear in Clay County. And we want people that have the same mentality that we do, the same values that we do, to come and live in Clay County with us and to raise their families and to enjoy recreation in Clay County with us, because that brings us together as a community. We love Clay County. The men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Department are dedicated to protecting you. They love Clay County as well. They are representative of our community. But don't think that when you come to this county that you're going to break the law, that the people of this community are not going to say enough's enough. So please come and join us. Let's be together. Let's be America. Let's be Clay County together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And now, Mrs. Cook.
You know, I am the only candidate in this race who's actually led the police response to well over 100 protests. For about the last 15 years of my career through my various assignments, I was in charge of making sure that protests stayed peaceful. And so there's a combination of a couple of things that have to happen. One, you have to work with the protest organizers. We have a constitution. People have a right to peacefully protest. And you have to explain to them what that looks like. You have to explain to them what the law is. And then you have to explain to the organizers the consequences of violating the law for a peaceful protest. Simultaneously, what needs to happen is that you have to have well-trained, well-equipped, well-prepared deputies that are ready to respond to any peaceful protest that devolves into rioting or looting. Make no mistake, rioting or looting cannot be tolerated, will not be tolerated. Our citizens in Clay County have worked way too hard for everything that they have, and we're not going to let outsiders who are paid to come to our county take anything away from that. You know, I served as a member, a supervisor, and the chief over the riot response team. So not only do I have the experience of commanding the police response to protests, I also have the experience of being a member and commanding the riot team response to protests. You know, at the end of the day, and I'll say this again, I think every other candidate up here said it, peaceful protests are guaranteed by the Constitution. Absolutely. Rioting and looting will not be tolerated, period.
Thank you. Now on to question number 2, and we will begin with Mr. Taylor. Give you a heads up there. You'll be the first one to address this, and you'll have up to 2 minutes to make your comments. Clay County, like many parts of the country, is continuing to see increases in crime due to drugs. What will you do to address the meth labs and other drug-related crime in Clay County?
Thank you. I'm actually the only candidate in this race that's recognized by the courts as an expert in racketeering, money laundering, historical drug conspiracies, and white-collar crime. I've attended DEA Quantico's clandestine laboratory investigations, and I coordinated clandestine laboratory investigations and clandestine laboratory response teams across the entire state of Florida. Clandestine laboratories are the laboratories where they manufacture methamphetamine. I've manufactured methamphetamine myself in a DEA laboratory. I'm recognized by the courts as an expert. What will I do? I wrote the Major Drug and Money Laundering Manual for drug investigations for Florida Department of Law Enforcement Special Agents and sat on the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission Training Committee as a subject matter expert. We will increase the drug unit. We'll have a street-level unit, a mid-level unit, and an organized crime unit. And we will attack drugs like a way that's never been seen before in Clay County. The street-level unit will work street-level drugs. The mid-level unit will target couriers and money couriers and drug suppliers. And the organized crime unit will attack the people behind the scenes that don't get typically targeted by local law enforcement. They go undetected. They're the folks that are the real people that need to be addressed. When you call an exterminator to get rid of a cockroach problem that you have in your house, you don't want them to stomp on a single cockroach and tell you that they've done the job. You want them to extract the nest, and that's what we'll do. I currently teach prosecutors, police officers, command staffs across the state how to target criminal organizations and work racketeering investigations to eliminate the entire organization, to disrupt their criminal behavior and dismantle their organizations. And so that's exactly what we'll do, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
We're going to continue the course in Clay County. We have an excellent drug unit. We are making inroads into the drugs in Clay County. Methamphetamine, we're on top of it in Clay County. I know, I've worked in Clay County for 15 years out of my 40-year career. We're going to continue to put the drug dealers in jail. We're going to continue to go after the users. And when we put them in jail, we're going to continue to work with them in our jails to try to keep them from being repeat offenders. In other words, we're going to work with them to help them get off of their habits. That's what we need to do, because once you put them in jail, the problem doesn't go away. The moment they get back out, they're going to try to find the drugs again. So we're working on it to shut the drugs down in Clay County. We'll continue to do it. We'll continue to participate with the DEA so that we know who the big drug dealers in the North Florida area are. And we will continue to do in-house, in the jail, drug rehabilitation programs, and we'll increase them in that area as well. I believe that a lot of people give up hope when they get on drugs. They lose their hope. So our goal is to help them get that hope back. But as far as Clay County goes, we have an outstanding drug unit. We do have a high-end drug unit, a street-level unit, and we do work very hard, day in and day out, to crush the drugs in Clay County. But one thing I want to encourage everyone to do in Clay County is that if you know of drug dealers, if you do know of people who are dealing drugs, or you see it or suspect it, please contact the Sheriff's Department, because without your help, we can't run this completely out of Clay County. We don't want this to continue on. No one here does. And again, if you know something, please be a part of it with us. We need the citizens' help. We're only about 350 deputies. That's only 350 people looking for it. But with your help and your information, we can crush drugs in Clay County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And now Mrs. Cook.
Thank you. You know, as we sit here this morning, let me say this. Drugs are coming right down Blanding Boulevard. Drugs are coming right down US 17 from both Duval County and Putnam County. Drugs are coming into our community. Drugs are coming into our neighborhoods. Drugs are coming into our homes. As the only candidate who's actually overseen a narcotics and vice division, I understand what it takes to fight drugs. You have to have a comprehensive plan. You have to make sure that drug dealing in Clay County is so difficult that the drug dealers go somewhere else. And then you have to have a pathway out for users. Listen, I'm all about holding people accountable, but you have to give users a pathway out. You know, at the end of the day, we want strong families in Clay County. And unfortunately, even in my own family, drugs have affected our families. And so with our users, when they're taken into custody, we want to work with our community partners and find pathways out for the users so that they can return to their families and be productive members of our community. Again, I'll say I'm the only person who's overseeing a large-scale drug unit division in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I know and understand what it means to fight drugs, and I'm committed to doing so in Clay County.
Thank you. And now Mrs. Webb.
Captain. Drugs is a problem not just in our county, but nationwide. And it will continue to do so as long as we don't bring the root of the problem to the forefront. Having dealt with people all over the nation and other countries, it's important to remember that we are people and we all make mistakes. People and drugs go from juvenile delinquency to the age of 80. Having been a correctional officer in the Nassau County Jail, we have parents with their children and their grandchildren in the same jail. We need to attack the problem at its core. Many of the correctional officers are the first responders when it comes to bringing those folks into the Sally Port. These are the people that help them realize that what they're doing to our society is destructive. These are the people that live in our county. Some of them are our own children. One thing leads to another. It starts with domestic violence, small areas of drugs that end up to terrible drug use, and sometimes it's beyond help. So we need to get to the core of the problem, because when they leave the jail, we know the judicial system, once we get them to the jail, it gets processed, and then they come back. But they don't come back to the places that we've closed down, as all have said before. They go to different areas and open different places and continue to try to produce more drugs and to continue to make more money. So therefore, my plan is to help those once they come into our facilities and to clean our streets completely. So it's important that we take that into consideration as well, to help them with not just their emotional abuse, but their physical abuse and their drug abuse in our county and in our streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For our third question, we will start with Mr. Carroll, and you will have 1 minute in the response for this particular question. If elected, what's your position on sanctuary city policies in cooperation with ICE, U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement?
I don't agree with sanctuary cities. We have laws on the books. We'll follow those laws on the books, and we will cooperate with ICE just like we always have. Some of my best friends are with U.S. Customs. I completely support them. They have a very difficult job. And let me tell you, people that come into our community that are not legal citizens draw down on our tax base. They draw down on our taxes. And first of all, they're here illegally, so we have to enforce the laws that are on the books. So we'll cooperate any way we can. Back in the day, we used to assist ICE with drug raids or with raids against illegals that were being employed by various developers around the area for cheap labor. And I would love to see that relationship reestablished. So most definitely, I do not agree with sanctuary cities, and those that are receiving federal dollars should lose those dollars until they come in compliance with federal law.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook?
Clay County will not be a sanctuary city under my watch, period.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. I do not believe in sanctuary cities. Clay County will not be a sanctuary city. 2 days ago, I received a phone call stating that a gentleman had a car accident and he was hit by an illegal alien and he was set free at the scene. I will not stand for lawlessness. I will not have a sanctuary city. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
I'm absolutely not in favor of any sanctuary cities in the continental United States. When I was a special agent supervisor with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I had ICE agents as well as NCIS agents assigned to my squad who worked as a task force. We helped coordinate a program whereby local law enforcement was cross-sworn as federal agents. As sheriff, I would take a number of my deputies and cross-swear them as federal agents. And illegals with violent criminal histories would be arrested, taken into custody, and detained for ICE. Not only would we cooperate with ICE and notify them when any illegal was about to be released from jail, we would proactively go after violent criminals that had detainers from ICE, pick them up, and detain them ourselves until ICE came to get them. We'd complement and supplement the federal government where that's concerned. The citizens of Clay County deserve that, and so that's exactly what we would do.
Thank you. For our fourth question, we will start with Mrs. Cook, and you have 2 minutes to answer this question. Clay County will continue to experience growth in the future with the opening of the First Coast Expressway and major development. Yet reports indicate that the Clay County Sheriff's Office is currently 47 officers short and $10.2 million over the 2019 budget. What is your plan to recruit additional officers, and how do you plan to pay for it?
Good question. So I see this question as two-part. Let's talk about growth and let's talk about recruiting and budget. So, the county is expanding quickly. In fact, the growth of the county is going to outpace the tax revenue that we recognize, and the demand on public safety is going to outpace the amount of resources that are available for public safety. So 2 things that I would do right off the bat. Number 1, create a part-time officer program I did this as the chief of police in the city of Atlantic Beach. It's an inexpensive way to bring in typically retired law enforcement officers that are in good standing. You pay them a flat rate, and they serve as force multipliers to your patrol deputies that are on the street. In addition, I would bring back the volunteer program, the very robust volunteer program that Sheriff Beasler had. Again, there are lots of very good people in this community that want to give back, and they can give back through the agency assisting us in public safety while we work through this gap. So when it comes to recruiting and retention, when you have a servant's heart, when you have a heart to serve your community, it's in you. And so for me, I would go out and recruit those young people who live in Clay County, who have a servant's heart, who want to give back to where they live, and I would recruit them into the agency. Paying for them is always tough, but you work with the commissioners. You have to be able to work with the commissioners and articulate the need in such a way that both the commissioners and the citizens understand. It's about prioritizing your funding. It's about prioritizing your personnel, and presenting a reasonable plan to the commission that's approved, that compels them to believe in public safety and paying for the deputies.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. I think it's very important for our people of Clay County to understand that our VIPS program was once 400 strong. These folks were volunteers. They are no longer with us. On my campaign, many folks had complained that they served Clay County honorably and it went by the wayside. I would like to bring that back. A couple of days ago, we lost electricity for 33,000 residents. Many people were without power. They were not able to communicate effectively with one another. If it would have been a true scenario where our country would have been in chaos, we have 60 strong ham radio operators that I am aware of in our county who would have been willing and able and ready to communicate with us effectively in case of a true scenario. I would have been able to utilize them immediately as soon as power went out. How do I know that? Because I have one in my neighborhood around the corner. I would also like to bring forth that in my first 90 days of office, it's important to see where our monies and our funds are actually going to. I do know that we have one boat operator and 2 boats that we could place in the water. Black Creek is one of the widest recreational areas that our folks use, and I am one of them. Safety is paramount. So why is it we have 1 boat operator, 2 boats, and to me, that's just not enough to keep our people safe on the water. So there's a lot of things that I would like to bring forth for our county to keep our people safe. That brings up morale for the community, and it also brings up morale for those folks within the agency. I'd like to utilize them to their potential and utilize them as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
The question is correct. Clay County is experiencing an unprecedented growth. Right now, you've got 220,000 residents. Between the next 5 and 10 years, you'll have over 300,000. The truth is, ad valorem taxes will never, ever be able to pay for the demand, the financial demand placed on the citizens for public services. That money's made up by the commercial businesses that will come much later. I happen to be a real estate broker and run a successful real estate brokerage that's been recognized in Forbes magazine the last 2 years in a row. So I have a little bit of experience with this. That said, we combine that experience with my law enforcement experience. I certainly support volunteers in law enforcement, but I will implement a reserve and auxiliary program for certified law enforcement officers to volunteer their service. But before we even get there, we're going to rein in the spending. As sheriff, I won't spend $5,000 to have a dancer fly in from Las Vegas to teach the SWAT team yoga for one day. As sheriff, I won't spend $25,000 to send command staff to Disney World for the weekend to learn customer service. The St. Johns County Sheriff's Office has approximately 700 members and 70 civilian support staff. The Clay County Sheriff's Office has approximately 550 members and 200 civilian support staff. The current administration has increased the civilian support staff from 100 to 200 over the last 3.5 years. I will rein that in. We will realign positions and put more deputies on the street, more corrections officers in the jail. That's what Clay County desperately needs, as you indicated in the question, 47 officers short. We can fix that by realigning our current budget and living within our means. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
How do you pay for it? That's the question. Right now, the budget in 2 years went from $55 million to a proposed almost $70 million this year. The taxpayers pay enough. The average taxpayer pays over 40% of their income between the U.S. federal tax and the local taxes. That's enough. We can't pay any more. So how do you do it? I teach this in the university level. I've done this while I was a police chief for the city of Tavares. The way we do it is we diversify our tax revenues. Property tax can no longer cover the cost of government. Government has to learn to diversify their revenues. They do that through something called public-private partnerships, one I'm working on right now with the county. I'm not even the sheriff, and I'm working on helping bring ranges to Clay County and save $500,000 to the Clay County Sheriff's Department. But through public-private partnerships and helping our local businesses grow, we also do what's called business incubation. Right now, the Clay County government, I've been talking with 3 of the different commissioners, and just 2 commission meetings ago, they adopted the philosophy of public-private partnerships with business incubation. We help local businesses grow into viable, strong businesses, and through that, the help that we give them, we take a percentage off of each company that we help. We even help start companies that help government do things more efficiently. And through that, through each time we help another business, we gain a new line of revenue that's coming into the county. The first couple, it won't make a huge dent on the Clay County Sheriff's Department's budget. But after a couple of years where we've incubated about 60, 70, 100 businesses, and we're receiving 10% of the gross revenues, then we're going to start greatly impacting our budget and diversifying. We're not going to find ourselves ever again when the bottom drops out of the housing market trying to figure out how to pay. Our police officers right now are some of the lowest paid in North Florida, $38,000 a year. These men need to be paid well, and I am going to do my best to never, ever raise the taxes in Clay County. Matter of fact, right here, I will never support an increase to property tax, and I knew I was going to get a cowbell.
There's a first time for everything. Okay, next question. We will start with Mrs. Webb, and you have 1 minute to answer this question. If you get elected, how will you improve oversight and transparency in the CCSO?
Thank you, Captain. When I become the sheriff of Clay County, I will ensure that every citizen is available to call me at any time. As I was on active duty, we served 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I intend to serve my community as I serve my country. Vote Catherine Webb, your sheriff for Clay County. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
I actually published my plan for the sheriff's office on my website, www.miketaylorforsheriff.com. I'll implement a stratified policing model that incorporates accountability in policing. Sergeants will be working with their deputies daily to determine what they did at their calls for service, what they could have improved upon and done better. Lieutenants will be working with their sergeants to do the same. Captains will be working with their lieutenants to do the same. And they'll all report to command staff on a monthly meeting in a transparent manner. We'll show the public exactly what you're getting for the dollar you spend in public safety. Accountability will begin at the lowest appropriate level. Decisions will be made at the lowest appropriate level. Everyone in public service to make Clay County a safer community.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
The first thing we're going to do, we're going to streamline 4 areas of our department where we already have county offices that handle it. We're going to streamline these and let the county have some oversight in what we're doing. That's going to be in the area of budgeting, communications, our technology division, and our fleet services. Right now, a lot of these things have no oversight. It's all done through the Sheriff's Department, and whatever the Sheriff's Department does is what happens. When we turn around and allow the county in to look at what we're doing, that adds transparency. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in crime prevention incentive districts. We're going to have 5 of them, where the people in various areas of Clay County actually have direct input on how we're going to do law enforcement in Clay County. We already have a great staff, and a lot of these things are already occurring. So we're going to continue doing what we're doing and increase by adding more public participation and streamlining the things that we're already doing. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Cook.
Accountability and transparency starts at the top. It's a tone that is set. It's a philosophy that is lived. It's a deliberate willingness and deliberate effort to do public safety, to do your service in the open air, so to speak, with the community. You know, I have a 28-year career, successful career in law enforcement, and every day I lived by the philosophy of accountability and transparency. Accountability through data, through meetings, through community meetings, and transparency. For example, in the city of Atlantic Beach, we placed all of our reports on use of force, vehicle chases, and those things, those high liability things that are important to the community. We place those on our website for the community to see. So I'll say this, you know, I'll end with this. Accountability and transparency is a tone and a philosophy that's set at the top.
Thank you. For our next question, we will start with you, Mr. Taylor. And the question is, and you have 1 minute to respond to this, what is your position on body cams?
I support the use of body cams if the citizens of Clay County want their officers to wear body cams. What we need to understand is, one, there's a significant cost. It's about $3.5 million. It requires not only the body cameras themselves at about $1,000 a piece, it requires the infrastructure and personnel to download, upload, share it with the state attorney's office, et cetera. It's a significant expense. Additionally, there's a cost to the public, because the videos that are captured by law enforcement are public record, and we deal with people at their lowest moment in their lives. So I want to make sure that the citizens of the county, A, want it, and B, understand the cost financially and as far as what may end up becoming public record. We have a very open public record state, and so that's a significant issue that I believe merits open discussion, but I support the use of body cams. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
Against body cameras. Body cameras are a passing fad. They're there to catch maybe 1% of the bad guys, and we've already got other measures on how to capture them. Body cameras are expensive. The retention of it's expensive. And right now, we have officers that could almost afford to go down and apply for welfare. I am not going to bring a fad in. Are they useful? Do they have purpose? Yeah, but for the cost of them right now, I can't see it for Clay County. We have a great professional standards unit. We have great men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Office, and when one of them steps out of line, it's very easy for us to detect them and to remove them from the Sheriff's Department. But right now, if we add that type of cost to the Sheriff's budget, when we're already trying to figure out how to add an additional $15 million, it's not a smart move for Clay County. So right now, no, I'm not for body cameras for Clay County.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook?
The good cops out there don't mind body cameras. I don't mind body cameras. There is an expense to the body cameras that I think has to be recognized. But I will tell you this, you know, more often than not, the body cameras, 99.9% of the time, catch the officers doing the good thing. Very rarely do officers do bad things, and even more rarely is that action captured on camera. I am in favor of body cameras. There is a large expense associated with them, and you know, at the end of the day, it's up to the citizens of the community. What is your expectation of your law enforcement agency? And if body cameras is an expectation of the community, we will work towards getting body cameras.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. I am for body cameras. I believe that 25% of our officers in Clay County are falsely accused on a weekly basis. How do I know this? Because I live in Clay County. How do I know this? Because I know that our officers are good officers. All of our officers at Clay County have had to encounter this once or twice while they've been at Clay County Sheriff's Office. We do not have industry in Clay County. We have a lot of transients, people that come through our county every single day. people that don't live there and try to bring lawlessness. And therefore, in order to keep every single good officer that we have in Clay County, we need to keep and retain them. And we need to make sure that we support them and that we're with them and they understand that I will be behind them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Carroll. You'll have 1 minute to state your position. And the question is, we have a lot of gun owners in Clay County. What is your position on open carry?
If you have gone to any of my free concealed weapons courses, you're already going to know my position on open carry. I love open carry. I hope that we become like Texas, because if you've ever gone to Texas and gone into a convenience store, you're not afraid that the place is going to get robbed. Because if somebody was silly enough to come in and try to rob it, they would probably catch about 5 different bullets from well-armed citizens behind them. Open carry deters crime. You can't measure deterrence other than at the end of the year to see how many crimes did not occur. When the state of Florida passed their concealed carry firearms law, our murder rate fell by 40% in 1 year. Imagine what's going to happen when we pass an open carry. It's going to fall even lower. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a right to bear arms. It's guaranteed by our Constitution, and we need to be responsible gun owners, and we should be allowed to carry our firearms. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook?
Absolutely believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to bear arms. I think tactically open carry is not smart. If I'm the bad guy and I'm looking to see who in the room might be able to prevent me from doing bad things, I'm going to go after the person that's open carrying. I believe tactically a concealed carry is smarter, but I absolutely believe in the Second Amendment and believe it is your constitutional right to bear arms.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. And thank you for the question. I, too, believe in open carry. I, too, believe that if someone wanted to do harm, they wouldn't do it if they saw that you were carrying. I serve my country because I believe that it's important to keep our country safe. Our daughter was killed due to a violent crime. Police cannot be everywhere. I'm an avid gun owner. And I can tell you that my family and I will never have to endure that again. You might have to be the person to save your family in case we are not there. I truly believe that every person who has the privilege of having a gun and who has had the opportunity of a concealed weapons license has never used it unless they've had to. I believe in open carry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I support the Second Amendment, and I fully support open carry. And as sheriff, I would work with our state lawmakers to make sure that that became a law and allowed our citizens to carry openly should they desire. I've been a police officer for 32 years in this state. I've been a firearms instructor for almost 30 of those years and a defensive tactics instructor for almost 20 of those years. I fully support open carry.
Thank you. For the next question, Mrs. Cook, we'll start with you. You have 2 minutes to answer this question. 2 years ago, Florida passed a red flag law that allows any person to allege danger from a licensed gun owner and allow for mechanisms for those guns to be confiscated with no warning and without any due process to determine the validity of the claim. There are sheriffs across the U.S. who have refused to follow the red flag laws in their states because they say it is unconstitutional. Other sheriffs are confiscating weapons frequently. What is your stand on the red flag laws and why?
So it's also referred to as a risk protection order. Let me say this. Over the course of my almost 30-year career, I have had occasion to run into incidents where somebody is saying things and doing things that the reasonable people around them are alarmed. And the actions and the words don't meet the threshold of a Baker Act. They're not threatening themselves or threatening somebody else. And at the same time, their actions and words don't meet the threshold of a criminal act. And so there's a needle a thread through a needle right there, and that is the risk protection order. And I'll give you an example of a case that we had. A gentleman was fired. He made statements to his employer that they would see him again. He would be in the news, and everybody would know his name. He went home and said the same thing to his family. They called us. Is it 2 minutes or 1 minute? 2 minutes, okay. They went home and these reasonable people called us and they said, we are terrified that he is going to go into his former employer and kill them because he's making these statements. Now, with that being said, I think there's a lot of challenges with the risk protection orders that have to be addressed. Number one, people must have a right to representation when they go before the judge, and that representation must be at first appearance immediately and representation throughout the entire process. Number two, do not agree with the law enforcement agency confiscating the weapons. I think the better answer is to turn those weapons over to a family member who can safely keep them. Not a big fan of law enforcement taking weapons from people, but I will say there are evil people in this world that know how to skirt the system. And at the end of the day, my job is to protect the families in Clay County, and the risk protection order is a tool that should not be used liberally, but that we should have.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. There are plenty of laws on the books at the moment without having to have our red flag law. 2 years ago, when it was implemented, there were many complaints. Yes, I believe it's unconstitutional. And I believe that, as I stated earlier, 25% of the people that come through and who make statements against law enforcement officers might make those same statements against our citizens of Clay County. Therefore, I do not believe that we need a red flag law. And as your sheriff, I will not be confiscating weapons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I'm not in favor of red flag laws as they're currently constituted. Go home tonight, or if you're online, look at this. Google search Austin, Texas, Republicans must die. You'll see a young man, a college student, that's almost foaming at the mouth as he says, all Republicans must die. You have to slash their throats. He hasn't risen to the level of committing a crime by doing that. He's exercising free speech. But if that individual was buying guns or had an arsenal of weapons, I think that we need an open dialogue to determine how to deal with this. Baker Act is not the solution. When someone's Baker Acted, they're taken into custody by law enforcement when law enforcement sees that they have demonstrated a potential to harm themselves or another immediately in the law enforcement officer's presence. They're taken into custody and delivered to the hospital for 72 hours. That doesn't take away their firearms, and it doesn't change their mental state. We need to have an open, transparent dialogue to discuss what we can do. I do believe that we need to seek an appropriate solution. But when we get close to taking away someone's Second Amendment right to own a firearm, I'm very concerned. The constitutional protections that we enjoy as citizens of the United States is not something to be taken lightly. At the same time, if we had an example like I just explained in our community, I would, again, openly discussing it with our citizens to come up with the right solution. I'd rather err on the side of caution to make sure that we didn't suffer a tragedy as we've seen with mass homicides across the nation. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll?
The Second Amendment says that we have the right to bear arms, and that right will not be infringed. Our founding fathers didn't mix their words. They stated it very simply so that you can't misunderstand what they said. Any law that takes away the right to due process is illegal and is not a constitutional law. And if we open the door to take away our firearms in the very slightest, we're going to open up a floodgate that we can't stop. Make no mistake, the red flag laws are an effort by the liberal left to open that door and to open that floodgate. I will not stand behind or support any red flag law that takes away your right to due process. You have the rights to bear arms as U.S. citizens. This was not given to us by our country. These rights were given to us by God.
Thank you. So for our next question, Mrs. Webb, we'll start with you. and you have 2 minutes to answer this question. Last year, Clay County Schools rejected the school resource officers from the CCSO and established their own school district police department. What is your position regarding bringing these positions back, if asked, and how would your plan differ from what was done before?
Thank you, Captain. I think that's a very important question, especially for us Clay County voters who are taxpayers. I believe that it's important to have a sheriff who can effectively communicate with all entities of the county. I believe our sheriff failed us because he didn't have that ability to effectively communicate, which in turn placed us in a position to have to pay additional taxes. Those folks that work for the school don't have the ability and don't currently have the communication to expand and help us within our community to keep us all safe. There's jurisdictional boundaries that are placed on them, which I would have done differently. When there's no communication with all entities of the community, people began to separate and they began to build differently. I would like to bring those communities together. I would like to bring those entities together. I would like us all to utilize our tax dollars to its potential, maximize our people, our spaces, our places, our communities. And that's what I bring to the table. I'm trilingual. I speak Spanish. I speak Japanese. And I think it's important for people of our community to be able to effectively talk with one another, come to the table. And most importantly, when you can't come to an agreement, it's important to be able to walk away and come back again another day. And that's what I bring to the table. I agree with Mr. Carroll. We're done with taxes. We've paid enough. It's time that we talk and discuss and make things happen. The talking time is over. Let's start making things grow. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Let me start by saying, regardless of what the newly installed school board will decide, I will deputize these school police, Green Cove Springs police officers and Orange Park police officers with countywide jurisdiction, and we will become one Clay. That said, what would I do if they wanted to send the school resource officers back to the sheriff's office? Welcome them with open arms. What would I do to avoid the confrontation in the future? Not dig my heels in the sand and refuse to cooperate. The state of Florida, across the state, sheriff's offices receive approximately $66,000 per deputy per year as reimbursement from their school boards. The incumbent sheriff asked for $107,000 in reimbursement from the school board and put the school board in a position that there was no winning solution. Had I been on the school board, I very well may have made the same decision they did. For $107,000 per deputy, you can fund your own department and not have to deal with a tyrant. That's as simple as it gets. Had he remained reasonable, the cost to the county would have been still $66,000. Now let's be clear about this. Whether it's the money coming from the school board or the money coming from the existing sheriff's budget, it's still your tax dollars. And that's where I'm mostly concerned, because it's your money. It's not the sheriff's money. It's not the school board's money. It's your tax dollars. Where can we best spend it? There is a serious duplication of effort and funds with vehicles, training, maintenance, uniforms, etc., that the citizens of Clay County did not need to pay for had the sheriff been able to communicate and cooperate with the school board. So should I become your sheriff, I will cooperate with the school board. And if they keep their police department, we will work with them, deputize them, give them countywide jurisdiction, all for one Clay.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes, I agree. Duplication of services costs us all money, and there's only so much money to go around. The school board controls their section, and they get to do with that money as they please. And at this point, they sought to hire their own police department. The greatest challenge I see for the school board as we move forward is sustainment. Sustainment are the ever-increasing costs of maintaining law enforcement, and those dollars come away from educating your children. I don't have a problem with the school board having a police department if that's what they so choose to do with their money. And like Mike Taylor said, I would most definitely, and I've already talked to the police chief and offered that if I am elected sheriff, I will deputize them or enter into a mutual aid agreement to expand their ability to operate off of school campuses. And I will extend that also to the local jurisdictions, Orange Park and Green Cove Springs. As we move forward, if the school board decides, as sustainment becomes more of an issue to the school board, I will give the school board the same deal they had before, is that easily we'll welcome them with open arms, like Mr. Taylor said, and we'll take it back over and let those tax dollars that are currently being spent on law enforcement through our school board be spent to educate your children.
Thank you. Mrs. Cook?
At the end of the day, it's about keeping kids safe. And whether it's a standalone school board or members of the Clay County Sheriff's Office that work in the schools, it's about keeping the kids safe. I think the existence of the Clay County School Board is a duplication of effort. It's a duplication of infrastructure. It's a duplication of costs that end up costing the taxpayers more. But if the citizens of Clay County say, you know what, we want to keep our school board, we want to keep it as is, then I will fully support and fully cooperate with the school board to ensure that their officers and our deputies are on the same page when it comes to training, when it comes to working together. If the citizens of Clay County decide that they want to dissolve the Clay County School Board Police, then I will absolutely onboard those employees into the Clay County Sheriff's Office with open arms, because they are the ones that are already familiar with their schools, with their kids. But at the end of the day, for me, this is a decision for the citizens of Clay County. How much more do you want to pay in taxes, and how do you want to move forward?
Thank you. This is our final question. Mr. Taylor, we will start with you. You have 1 minute to answer this question. What do you believe is the single biggest citizen concern for the CCSO, and how will you handle it?
Integrity. A little over a year ago, the incumbent sheriff made a false arrest of his mistress to cover up an affair. Every citizen in Clay County should shudder at the thought that a police officer could operate with impunity and violate their civil rights. You as Clay County citizens deserve to have a sheriff that understands there is no separation between personal and professional integrity. It starts at the top. And when it doesn't, the entire community and agency suffer. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll?
I believe the people of Clay County want to know that when they call 911 that a sheriff's deputy is going to show up and immediately respond. And let me tell you, they do, and they'll continue to do it. Clay County Sheriff's Department, and I've been one of them for many, many years, we continue to serve the public and put our own lives at risk because we care about you. We even hazard our own families and their financial well-being. But we care about this community. I care about this community. I love having my family raised in Clay County, my children going to schools. And rest assured that the men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Department, the large majority of them, 99.9% of them, feel the same way I do. We care about you. We want you to know when you call 911, we're coming with everything we have, and we're coming to protect you against those people who would do you harm.
Mrs. Cook?
I think the biggest concern that every citizen has in Clay County is if I call 911, will a well-trained, well-equipped deputy respond quickly? I think with all of the challenges that the current sheriff is having and has had, he has created an atmosphere of mistrust, an atmosphere of lack of integrity, and an atmosphere of citizens not knowing who's going to show up at their front door. I think the men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Office do a fantastic job with everything that they have, but I think there's a sense of uncertainty and a sense of not knowing what's next. And for me, the biggest thing I want to bring back to the Clay County Sheriff's Office is that sense of integrity and that sense of servant leadership.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb?
Thank you, Captain. As I walk on my campaign and I speak to my neighbors and friends, the most important thing we've been discussing for years has been The tax increase in the safety and security of the people in our county and our police officers. Many people are tired of the duplication of processes that we have in our schools and in our county. We have veterans. Many of our people that live in our county are retirees. We were told when we voted at the last election for our tax increase for the safety of our children. And then the school decided to put up a police department. We can't afford a tax increase anymore. These are people who serve their country for the betterment of our community, for our nation. This is what our people are worried about. They're worried about how we're going to keep our police officers safe, our families safe, and doing that without having to pay more taxes. Vote Catherine Webb, your sheriff for Clay County.
Okay, thank you for that. That now finishes our questions, and now we're to the 2-minute close. Mrs. Cook, we'll begin with you.
Captain, earlier this week I was sitting with some voters, and one of them said to me, he said, "Why should I invest in you?" And I thought about the word invest, because a vote is not only a vote or an investment in a candidate, it's an investment into this county, into our community. You know, I've spent the better part of 30 years in law enforcement on a journey that has really come full circle for me here today in front of all of you. And what I would ask is for all of you to invest in me. Let's invest in moving our county forward. I want to walk with you. I want to walk with your families to make Clay County a place where businesses thrive and families are kept safe, and we keep the foundation of our conservative Christian Republican values here in Clay County. That's your investment in me. That is your vote for me, a conservative Christian Republican who believes in Clay County values and wants to work with you to make our community the best community in the state of Florida.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll?
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got almost 40 years in law enforcement. My father was in law enforcement 20 years before me. He actually put James Earl Ray in prison after he killed Dr. King. I have sat here with the Clay County Sheriff's Office. I've been a police chief. I've been a federal agent. I've handled massive budgets. I've wrote huge federal grants. But when I was here at the Clay County Sheriff's Office over the last two administrations, I watched people come from outside of Clay County to stand on top of this pyramid of service. In other words, they stood on the shoulders of the men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Office. I want to turn that pyramid upside down. It's now time for someone within the Clay County Sheriff's Office to let the men and women of the Sheriff's Department stand on my shoulders. It's now time for them to be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad the sheriff walks around and shakes your hand and meets you. But you know what? The sheriff isn't going to show up at your door at 2 a.m. in the morning while someone's trying to break in. I want you to meet the men and women of the Clay County Sheriff's Office. I know them personally. And I want you to know them when they come to your door at night, that you can trust them and they're there for you, and they will put their lives on the line to protect you. And that's what I'm here. I did not come to be served. I came to serve this community. Thank you so much for the opportunity to run for this office. We have very great men and women. We all have great resumes. But now it's about vision. What is our vision for the Clay County Sheriff's Office? I have a vision of financial responsibility, of how to diversify our revenues, of how to promote our men up through the agency. Please give us an opportunity to serve you from within the Clay County Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to be a candidate for sheriff. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Clay County, you've got some fine men and women running to be your next sheriff. I'm honored to be counted among them. The truth of the matter is, just about anyone on this stage and any other candidate would be better than what we have now. I love Clay County. Clay County deserves better. I've been a professional lawman for 32 years, married to my lovely wife for 33 years, and served as a lay minister for 35 years. I've been a public servant my whole life. When it comes to leading men and women in law enforcement, real experience matters. I've personally written more search warrants, more arrest warrants, more seizure warrants, made more first-degree felony arrests than all of the candidates running for sheriff combined. When it comes to leading law enforcement men and women, that experience matters. And in this election, Your vote matters. I'm Mike Taylor, running for Clay County Sheriff, and I humbly ask for your vote August 18th.
Thank you. Mrs. Webb.
Thank you, Captain. To the citizens of Clay County, I am Catherine Webb, and when I become your sheriff, I'd like you to know that I will stand behind the men and women and give them what they need to support you and to support us to keep our community safe. I'd like to thank my colleagues, all on this panel, who come from St. Johns County to try to keep us safe in Clay. The difference between my colleagues and I is that while they were managing people and managing programs in their county, I was doing that and policing the nation. I have led people all over the world in law enforcement, and I am proud to serve, and I am proud to be here to lead the people of Clay County to the forefront. I want every law enforcement officer to know in Clay County, when I become your sheriff, I lead people. One of you, under my command, will be the next sheriff. Why? Because I am tired of people coming to our county wanting to run us when we can run ourselves. I appreciate all of your support. And just so you know, I don't just have military experience. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice, and I'm currently in a master's program as I run my campaign. I would like to thank each candidate on this panel, because Ben Carroll is correct. We all have great resumes. And the one thing that we all have is in the core of our soul is to serve the community. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for all that you have done for us, to support us, to greet us, and to allow us the opportunity to come into your homes, into your establishments, and to give us your complaints and things that you feel that you need in our county. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Clay County, and God bless America.
Thank you. And that concludes our forum for the sheriff candidates, and we appreciate your time today. We certainly do. Thought the audience was pretty easy today, as you can tell. Don't forget that Clay County voters can register and vote in our straw poll at tallyed.com. That's TALLYED.com. All straw poll races are up on our site. The user needs to click the RLC straw poll in the My Ballot section of their homepage to see the ballot. And we'll put that up on the event as well, but we want to remind you of that. Also, early voting for the primary starts in Clay County on Thursday, August 6th, and the election day is Tuesday, August 18th. On behalf of the Republican Liberty Caucus, thank you for watching. Thank you for being informed. Thank you for our candidates.